Hi everyone, so thanks very much for joining us again today. I'm here with an alumna from our Tunisia Emerging Identities in North Africa program. Emma, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Conover-Crockett. I just returned from the program last fall in Tunisia, and I'm currently at Kenyon College right now. I am a junior here.
And what are you studying back home at Kenyon College?
At Kenyon, I am a history major, and I also have an Arabic minor.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for being willing to take some time. I know that prospective students really like to hear directly from people who have been there. So let's jump right into the questions. There are lots of opportunities to go and study abroad around the world. What made you, or what appealed to you about Tunisia or SIT Tunisia in particular?
Well, I knew that I wanted to go somewhere in the Middle East, and I have spent some time in the Gulf, and so I was thinking about North Africa a little bit. And something about the SIT Tunisia program really stuck out to me. I actually knew a Tunisian student from high school, and so I had thought about it a little bit, but the idea of the program of sort of studying the Arab Spring very in depth was really appealed to me. So there was, I would say, not exactly any opportunities at Kenyon here for me to go really in depth on one particular aspect of recent history. And so in that sense, I thought that it would be really fantastic to get a very holistic, I guess, understanding of the Arab Spring and how it continues to affect people in Tunisia.
And what better place to do that than where the Arab Spring actually started?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to make you really hone in on something. You mentioned a lot of things there that drew you to SIT Tunisia. Let me know what one thing really appealed to you the most, or what one thing was your favorite aspect of the program?
I want to say it was the entire process of the ISP. I really like doing independent research, and so for me, it was definitely a really positive experience to be able to think about something that related to my own personal interests, my academic interests, and then spend an entire month only focusing on that, only studying that, and really getting very in depth on that. So I think that was, for me, one of the best aspects of it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So do you really, do you want to let us know a little bit about what you did for your ISP while you were there, your independent study project?
Yeah, absolutely. I focused on marriage culture in Tunisia, and I was looking at an oral history of marriage. So I ended up talking with 3 generations of women from one family and looking at how their perceptions and realities of marriage had changed. So one of them had gotten married in 1955, a year before Tunisian independence from the French. And so she was sort of married in a colonial context. And then I talked with her daughter and then her granddaughter, who had gotten married as recently as this past summer, and basically was asking them questions about their perceptions, not only of marriage in general, but also of different social phenomena and things, different social phenomena, and then basically looking at how their experiences related to a broader trend of Tunisian social history.
And what did you find out there?
I found a lot of, like genuinely very interesting things. So one particularly important piece of legislation, which was passed in 1956, right around the time of independence, was the Personal Status Code in Tunisia. And that is legislation essentially that covers a wide variety of family law practices, gender law, things along those lines. And I was really interested in their various perceptions of it. So the younger women, the 2 younger generations, were much more open and interested in looking at that. But then the older generation, were really not that aware of aspects of the personal status code. I also asked them some questions about the Arab Spring, and I was really intrigued to notice that the grandmother in this family was the person in particular who believed that life had changed for the better, whereas the younger generations were a little bit more wary about some of the after effects of the Arab Spring, which is something that we had talked about in my classes as well. And then I also found really interesting looking at how specific policy changes on behalf of the government, so including limitation of clan marriages by Habib Bourguiba, the first president, how those things related to changes in how people were getting married how people were making those decisions, whether or not women were making their own decisions for who to marry or whether they were influenced by their family. So I thought that those were very interesting aspects of it as well. And then there also, as a very sort of small afternote, I was really intrigued with the youngest woman's relationship and how it had sort of with her husband and how that had bloomed over social media.
That's a very, very interesting topic there. So now that you're back at Kenyon, have you delved deeper into that? You mentioned you had an Arabic studies minor, excuse me. And now that you're back, though, have you delved deeper into Tunisian history or North African history or anything along the theme and location of your program?
I'm taking a class this semester, an upper level seminar called Women and Gender in the Modern Middle East. And so definitely, in fact, that's sort of what I've been most interested in when I'm looking at history is exactly that subject. So we have had, at this point, most of the articles we've been reading have not focused on North Africa, but we did read one interesting article about handicrafts in Tunisia and Algeria. Also interesting because one of my friends' ISPs who I helped her do a little bit of translating for was actually about handicraft in Tunisia. So that was an interesting link that I made, even if it wasn't directly with my ISP.
Very, very interesting. Now, did you use any French while you were there, or was it mainly Arabic while you were in Tunisia?
I don't know any French at all. I was only using Arabic. However, there were times when I found French came in handy just because there are some cognates between French and English. So when communicating with my host mom, if there was a word I didn't know, occasionally I would try the English or she would try the French and we would see if that was a cognate. And that worked out a couple of times.
And that's always fun when you're trying to communicate across the languages like that. So you mentioned the Arab Spring there, and the Arab Spring, and you mentioned also how people in the family you interviewed had a little wary views on it when they were in the younger generations. What were your views on the Arab Spring and how it affects the current climate in Tunisia?
Well, that was basically the question of the entire academic program that we were going over. And so I guess the big questions that Tunisians are asking right now, or at least while I was there, are how does the new government play into the old government? What is their relationship? You know, the current president, Beji Caid Essebsi, was a minister under Habib Bourguiba, and so there are lots of questions as to whether or not the new government is just sort of a reflection of the old. The other big thing that people are asking is about the economy, basically. So when protests first started in Sidi Bouzid in 2011, and basically it was very much based on economic struggles, and that's something that we talked about a lot. And that people's economic struggles are still continuing. Unemployment is very high. So in the sense that so basically what Tunisians seem to think at this point, as far as I could tell, is that in a very political freedom of speech way, the Arab Spring has been successful. People are able to protest against the government without having massive repercussions against themselves or their families. And people are, genuinely able to participate in government if they choose. Civil society is very, very thriving, but that the economy and certain aspects of the political system, including corruption, are just really not lagging behind where people expected them to be 5 years out.
That's understandable, definitely there. Now, when you were there, I know there was the bombing on the presidential brigade on the bus there. Did that have any effect on your day-to-day while in Sidi Bouzid?
It did, definitely, in that the government put the country for about the last 3 weeks that we were in Tunisia under curfew from about 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. every day. But as far as my own personal perception when I was out and about safety, I don't think that things changed. I did not personally feel like a target while I was there in any way, shape, or form. This attack was very clearly targeted at the presidential security bus, basically the Secret Service, and so that wasn't something that I felt like I was in danger at any point. Obviously people were concerned and pretty wary, and there were some times when we would, for the first couple of days, especially after it happened, we would avoid going into downtown Tunis. But overall, I felt that I was, completely safe when I was in La Marsa and Sidi Bouzid.
Okay, and I have not been to Sidi Bou Said myself, but oh my word, those pictures look very, very good.
Mhm.
So now, as you know, being on our Tunisia program, SIT does keep our programs small, so we can get a very good, close, personal, experiential learning environment, but sometimes that also doesn't allow us to have enough word of mouth. So how would you explain SIT to someone who, I'm sure you've had to do this, to someone who has no idea who we are?
I think that I would say that SIT, in effect, is a program that definitely encourages, personal exploration of your interests, and that was something that stuck out to me. I mentioned the ISP definitely, and that it's something that's, like, I guess when you're in an SIT program, you'll be learning in a very different way from how you're learning in your traditional classroom at your university or college. You will have fewer readings and things like that, but much more experiential learning. A lot of the learning comes from the homestay experience, definitely. So my time with my host family was definitely really important and a very big learning experience for me. And then you also will have a lot of visits, so there would be days when we wouldn't have class in the traditional sense, but we would go visit an NGO, or we would have a speaker who would come and talk about their experience with, say, the Tunisian League of Women Voters, or starting a government accountability organization, something along those lines.
That sounds very, very exciting to keep things on the move. So now this is my last question for you. Can you name one thing that you know now that you wish you knew before you applied to the program?
I think that it's an interesting question. Sorry that I'm taking just a moment to
That is
put a few good
totally
answers.
fine. I can reword it if you'd like. It's just very often at the end of an experience we have hindsight 2020. So I like to ask the students if there was one thing. Very often in Jordan they'll say how Western it was, or in Morocco they'll say I didn't know how much French could be used.
Um, let's see. I think that in Tunisia, I guess the French thing also sticks out to me as far as Tunisia goes. I guess I sort of knew that there was going to be French, but didn't realize how much there would be.
Yeah, I always hear and talk with students who want to learn French, but in a non-traditional environment, that Tunisia would actually be a very good location for that.
Yeah, we actually only had one student who was taking French in our program. The rest of us were taking Arabic. But one thing I will say about French in Tunisia is that it is pronounced much more clearly than French in France or in Quebec. And so people who did speak, there were a couple of students who had studied French before, and they found that it was really quite easy to use their French because they didn't have to worry about the pronunciation so much. And on the same hand, it was somewhat easier for me to understand my host mom if she was using French with me as well.
And that's understandable, and you hear that quite a lot across the African continent with the European languages that are spoken there. Just it's much clearer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, well, we've come to the end of our questions today. Is there anything else you'd like to say in regards to a student out there who may be watching this who's considering studying abroad in the Middle East or Tunisia in general?
I would say go for it. It has been an absolutely fundamental experience and a fundamental and important part of my college experience. I would absolutely recommend this program to someone else.
Well, thank you very much again for taking some time, and keep us updated with how your further studies go. We always like to hear from our alumni.
Mm-hmm.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
You have a good day then.
You too. Bye.